Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Shaman Circle. I'm your host, Allie Blair. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we are talking all about self-love. Our episode today is about creating a sustainable and self-love practice and talking about practical ways to take care of yourself that actually feel good. Now, I'm going to pause here and say we have an entire self-paced course with a whole bunch of different video modules, a self-love, self-care playlist, a 50-page workbook. Like, we have a beautiful course designed to teach you exactly this, how to create a sustainable self-love practice. So we're definitely going to talk about this, but I'm not going to dive 110% in depth into self-love simply because we have an entire course that already does that. But I think that this topic is absolutely important enough to create a podcast episode on it. So here we are, my friends. Now, I want to introduce the concept of self-love as a practice. It is an act of devotion. It is a commitment. It is not something that you just cross off your to-do list every day. And the act of self-love is, quite honestly, more important than ever right now. If you haven't looked outside recently, my friends, the world is actively crumbling before our very eyes. And we need people who are well-resourced to show up and be compassionate and patient and graceful with humanity right now. But we can't do that with humanity until we find that self-love, that compassion, that patience, that grace with ourselves. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Now, I want to share a little bit about my journey to self-love, but we did go over this in a previous episode when I kind of shared my origin story. So I'm not going to dive in too deep here, but I do just want to kind of give us a recap. So when I was growing up, I had a lot of self-esteem issues. I was very critical of myself. I remember my mom first noticing like some sort of disordered eating and a lot of self-doubt and judgment when I was 8 years old. Like this concept of self-love has been prevalent in one way or another really since I can remember. And growing up, it wasn't because I was experiencing this at home. This was more so being, bullied in school and the societal pressure growing up as a young woman. But I was very mean to myself. Like, there's no other way to say it. I was just mean. I was not kind. That inner voice, that inner critic, that monkey mind was just every way, every moment tearing me down from, oh, you're a fat pig and you don't deserve friends and nobody likes you and you're not smart enough to do this and you'll never be good at it. Like, it was just this constant narrative of never being good enough to love. And that was really the experience in my head growing up from a young age up until, I was about 19, where I could say, like, with full confidence, I absolutely hated myself. And to be honest with you, I didn't really care if I lived or died at that point. Now, this was the part that I shared in a previous podcast episode of, the story of hitting rock bottom in Philly in 2019 and that kind of opening up the door to God and spirit and the universe and all of those things, right? Now, fast forward from hitting rock bottom to now starting to understand the concept of self-development, personal development, self-care, things like that. Fast forward to January 2020, I find myself taking a bus from Baltimore to New York City to see Patricia Moreno live. That was the last trip I took before the pandemic hit. And it absolutely changed, everything. The way that I moved about the pandemic, my mindset when everything shut down. And because of that, my mindset once things started opening back up and the things that I wanted to prioritize at that point. So in 2020, I had just started this daily ritual with, 60 seconds of silence and closing my eyes and trying to get comfortable with the discomfort. And there was like 60 seconds of crunches, and I would read a single page in a book. Like, I had a very tiny start to a self-love practice, and that's not what I would have even called it at that point. It was just a morning routine, not realizing that like meditation and sitting with yourself was the door to self-love, right? So I was 3 weeks into like consistently practicing meditation and reading and all of these things for like 60 seconds a day, right? It was like a 6-minute morning routine. And I go to New York City and I meet Patricia Moreno. Now, I had met her the month prior at that personal development conference in San Diego, where kind of everything opened up for me. And then I saw her again for her own event. She was a speaker there. I saw her for her own event in January of 2020. And this woman absolutely, without a doubt, taught me how to love myself. And we went through all of these different exercises and experiments. And it wasn't just like a hokey, oh, everybody deserves love. You just have to love yourself. You just have to believe it. Like, it wasn't bullshit. Like, she was the first person who made me think that self-love was actually real and attainable. And I will forever be grateful to Patricia Moreno for that gift. And so by the end of this, oh goodness, I think it was like an 8-hour training. We had gotten to a point where we were making a commitment to ourselves of what we were going to do to continue on with this self-love. And the commitment I had was to write down that I love myself every day. And that was something that she had given me. In one of the last exercises, she encouraged us to go home, get your journal, and write down, I love myself 3 times every single day. If you wanted to step it up, you would look in the mirror and say, I love myself 3 times a day. Now, I didn't love myself, so writing that down didn't feel aligned, but it certainly opened the door for what could be aligned for my own self-love practice. And so I went home and I practiced that, and I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, but I don't, so I'm just writing lies. And that was when something dawned on me, and I said, well, how can I make this true? And so that statement of, I love myself, turned into, I am open to the idea of loving myself. And when we changed that, that's when the concept of self-love opened up, because that was a statement I could really get behind. I don't love myself yet, but I am open to the idea of it. And so then I started practicing that. I'm open to the idea of loving myself. And I would write that down 3 times in the morning. I would say it to myself in the mirror whenever I would go to the bathroom. And after 6 months of consistent daily, I'm open to the idea of practice, I got to a point where I was like, oh shit, I think I do kind of love myself. I'm actually kind of dope. Okay, we can do this. We can do this. And so it was about 6 months into this consistent practice where I realized I'm actually retraining my brain, and that monkey mind, that inner critic, that just mean Allie in me that said you're not worth shit. I mean, even to this day, a decade into this practice, she's still there, but she's not in the driver's seat anymore. And so after building this foundation of, brick by brick, consistent daily practice, once that foundation was built, then I got to have a little bit more fun and really build upon it. So my journey to self-love was quite literally from rock bottom to meeting someone who made me believe in the concept of self-love, to then practicing long enough for me to believe in that concept myself. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the principles of a sustainable practice and what self-love even is, right? Like, it's a term, self-love, self-care. We throw it around like it's nothing, but there is meaning behind those words, right? And so love, to me, is a verb. It's an action word. It is the act of loving something. And so self-love, to me, is the act of loving oneself. Self-love is respecting your body, giving it rest, nourishing it when it needs to, moving it when it needs to, right? Self-love is tending to your mind. It's not just the body, but the mind, with genuine reflection. When you have that monkey mind say something not very nice, can we meet it with curiosity and gentleness? That is loving the self. We have the body, we have the mind, we also have the spirit. Self-love is nourishing your spirit with practices that make you feel connected to the whole self, right? We've talked about holistic health. This comes into it. Self-love is a holistic practice. We are loving the whole being, not just nurturing the body with movement, not just nurturing the mind with kind thoughts, not just nurturing the spirit with meditation. We are loving or learning to love the whole self. Self-love in and of itself is a holistic practice. Self-love is the foundation for all other love. You know, when you choose to pour into yourself, you create this ripple effect that touches everything and everyone around you. Self-love, as cheesy as it sounds, I believe is the way that we can save the fucking world. If we love ourselves, we have no choice but to share that love with others, right? That concept of misery loves company, we're not necessarily taught how to love ourselves. And so we have a lot of people right now walking around in low vibrational and straight up miserable states of mind. And then that projects onward to society and we have that ripple effect. Hey, guess what? We can do the opposite. We can have the ripple effect in the positive way as well, but it starts with us. I want to take a moment and touch on the concept of consistency, right? I mentioned for 6 months, every single day, I wrote down, I'm open to the idea of loving myself. Now, my self-love practice did not stop there. After that 6 months, the affirmation changed to, I love myself, because that was finally a statement I could get behind, right? But this is a practice of consistency. Right? It's not something you just cross off your to-do list once a week. This act is something that we commit to on a regular basis. It can look different from day to day, from moment to moment, right? But the consistency still needs to be there. I would rather see you spend 3 minutes a day being kind to yourself intentionally and saying kind things to yourself in the mirror than doing a whole 2-hour routine every other week. Like that 3 minutes a day is going to take you so far if you stay consistent with it. And then ultimately, we have to find what works for us. Self-love is not a one-size-fits-all, here's the perfect bubble bath formula for you. Like self-love is an intimate and unique process for all of us because we're all living unique lives. So ultimately, we have to find that personalization. We have to find what feels good for us. And then integrate what feels good, and maybe not what feels good, but helps us grow, right? Because we grow through discomfort, not just with what feels good, right? But then we can start to integrate those practices of self-love into our daily routines. So then what does integration even look like, right? What are some practical tools and maybe not rituals yet, but some practices that we can get behind? First and foremost, journaling. And I say first and foremost because that's how I was introduced to the concept, right? So I can only give you the wisdom that's been passed down to me. If there's something that works better for you, or you for some reason absolutely hate writing, then don't try journaling. But I am gonna throw that out there because it can be a very powerful experience. So journal, write down, I'm open to the idea of loving myself. Like try on different affirmations, mantras, statements, see what feels good. And when you get to one where you're like, okay, like this is a bit of a stretch, it's a bit of a reach, but I feel pretty good about it. Like that's then the affirmation we're striving towards. I'm open to the idea of loving myself, eventually change to, I love myself. And I damn sure do, my friends, what a gift. I may not like every part of myself. The way that I show my love may fluctuate, but ultimately I have moved from a place of rock bottom, I hate my life, I don't care if I live or die, to, wow, life is pretty fucking dope and I love myself and I know I have a pretty cool mission to live out here. I am living and loving proof that you can turn that rock bottom into sky high. It takes consistency, it takes practice. So try journaling. Try journaling, try speaking your daily affirmations. If journaling doesn't feel good for you, if you don't feel like writing every day, my friend, do some mirror work in the bathroom. Look at yourself, be kind. You look dope today. Man, you are so resilient, you're so capable. Like whatever it is, man, like if If your best friend was looking back at you from that mirror and they needed some hope and encouragement, what would you say to them? Say that to you. That is a practice of self-love. Another way, or I guess many other ways we can integrate that self-love is, again, through those consistent small movements. It doesn't have to be a huge 2-hour thing. But when you take a shower, can you be present with your body? Can you take a moment in the shower to close your eyes and feel what it feels like to have the water run on you? Like that presence is an act of self-love. We don't have to overcomplicate things. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our souls are simply asking for presence. And what that presence looks like can look different for you. Maybe that self-care can look like taking a 15-minute walk after work or before work or whatever works for your schedule. Right? Keeping your phone at the house or putting it on do not disturb and just being present, being mindful. Noticing your steps, noticing what you feel in your body, being observant, being curious. That is self-love. There are so many other activities, practices, ways that you can integrate this concept, right? From moving your body, going to the gym, going to a yoga class, energy practices that feel restorative, laying on the floor for 10 minutes and focusing on your breath. Perfect. Right? Now we're starting to get a little bit into self-care, but self-care is the action of like how we show our love to ourselves. And then our job as we move through this process, this journey of learning how to love ourselves, is to be open to our mindset shifting. A lot of us, and I mentioned this before, a lot of us were not taught how to love ourselves. A lot of us were taught that self-love was selfish and that we had to put others first. Whether we were verbally taught that or we were shown that through our family's actions, through societal pressures, what have you. Like, a lot of people weren't taught that it's okay to put yourself first. And so this concept of self-love, it's not indulgent, it's not selfish, it's not extra, it's necessary. The concept of self-love is essential. We cannot pour from an empty cup. I wish I had a cup around me. If I have a cup, an 8-ounce cup of water, and we'll pretend that water is love, someone is thirsty across the room and they need some water. Okay, well, here, you can have half of mine. Well, now I only have 4 ounces left. I got 2 other people in the other room who are thirsty. Okay, well, here, take the rest of my water. Now I have an empty cup. The next person who asks for love, the next person who needs that water, I have nothing left to give. I have to continuously pour into my own cup and then give the overflow to others. But I cannot let my cup of love run dry, because then I simply have nothing else to give, not just to others, but to myself. We have to keep replenishing our own cup of love. That is the only way love can make the world go round. And I want to lovingly remind us here, when we talk about filling up our cups, when I talk about consistency, this is all about progress. It's such a cliche term, progress over perfection. But that's kind of what I'm preaching here. Progress, effort, consistency, showing up, being present. Those things are so much more important than ever being perfect. If you show up from a place of love, if you do your best and you do so consistently, you can do no wrong. So I'm always going to preach progress over perfection, because there is nothing perfect to attain. We're simply here to love ourselves a little better each day. I think I'm going to pause us here, because God knows, and I've said this in a few episodes now, God knows I could go off on an hour-long tangent about what self-love, what self-care looks like, feels like, how we can define it. But again, we do have an entire course on that. So I think I'm going to pause us here. And I want to start to close us by encouraging you to try something today. Pick one small action. If you are scared shitless of looking at yourself in the mirror, do it. You're safe, I promise. You decide how much you want to lean into the discomfort of this, right? But Sooner or later, my friends, the only way we can help heal the world is if we choose to heal ourselves. So your soul is asking for your love, and sooner or later, it's up to you to answer the call. So I'm gonna encourage you to try one small thing today. Maybe you say, fuck it, I'm gonna go huge and I'm gonna stare at myself naked in the mirror and say sweet nothings to myself, and I'm gonna be present with this human body. Maybe that's really scary and you're like, I think I'm just gonna like be a little kinder to myself when that monkey mind comes in and tells me that I'm worthless. I'm gonna turn around and say, no, I am worth something. And like, that's gonna be my practice today. That's enough, my friend. You do that a couple times a day and your life can change for the better. So I encourage you, I invite you, I lovingly challenge you to try something today, one small action to intentionally show yourself the love that you deserve. And then quick reminder before I let you go, self-love is a lifelong commitment to taking care of yourself. Be easy with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and take it one step at a time, because you quite literally have the rest of your life to love you. All right, my friends, in the next episode, we will talk about building a sacred space for you to practice loving yourself in. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Please always remember you are worthy of so much love, not just from yourself, but from the world as well. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you soon.